So let's do a nice background. Now I did pre-gesso this before I came on, and I dried it, and now I'm going to put in, I'm just going to be using my craft paint again, and let's see if I can find a nice green. Now you don't have to stick with this color, you can go to something totally different. So this one is lime green. I want a fair amount. And then I think I'll put a bit of white. And a nice yellow, cadmium yellow probably, if I want to lighten up some of that area. It's nice to make your backgrounds, when you're doing this type of background, mixing your colors together, but not totally, so that they're kind of blotchy looking. And I'm going to want to put a fair amount of background paint on this and then kind of smear it a bit so it looks mottled. So I'm going to put the black, or not the black, the green, and I'm using a really big brush, and I'm just going to dip a little of and I'm just going to paint all over. I'm not worried about where it's going, but I want a lot, and I want to put this on fairly quick so I've got time before it dries. Now if you're doing this, you can also wet your canvas or your page. Make sure it's gessoed though, because it'll be harder to move if it's not gessoed on paper or a raw canvas. Just throw in some white. Okay, I got a lot of paint on there. And then I'm going to take either a spatula or a credit card, whatever you have. And I'm going to use this here, and I'm going to use the smaller end. And I'm just going to move it around a little bit. Let it smear. Okay. Take that off. And now, to get this a little bit less blotchy looking, a little more softer looking, you can take a dry brush. This is just a cheap brush you get from the dollar store, and lightly go over it. Take the paint off. You want it dry, you don't want it wet. It's not working. I need more white. I'm going to try that. just play until you figure out a way of doing it. There's so many ways. This is a sponge I'm using. It gives a little bit of a softer edge. So just experiment. That's what I'm doing here. See how I'm going to get this look. Maybe a bit more white. This is how you learn, by playing. Just play. I'm going to let it dry, and I might go back over top of it. Now we can either darken some areas, so maybe I'll put a little bit more, maybe a little bit more white in there. I just put a little more white here. And I got my sponge again. Oh, I got a little bit of black on that. Well, I may as well take advantage of it. Put some of those lines in. A little more. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly the same as what's on there, so, and they're not going to be really defined. And I may as well take that red or charcoal gray and the white and put in the base of this nest here. So the nest takes up most of the bottom area. So I'm not really blending the two together, and I want it streaky. Be a little darker in the center here. Right on the top a little bit. There. So it's kind of messy looking. So that's just done with a makeup brush, or sponge, sorry. Alrighty, so I'll dry that now, and what do I want to do it in? The top part, so it's going to be kind of like that. There. Okay, let's try these. Let's see if it comes out enough. Yeah, it does. Okay, so do your tracing of your birds. You can do them all. Don't worry really about the nest area because we'll be doing that with brush strokes. But put in your birds. All right, I think I got everything. Yep. All right. Okay, so let's try these guys first. Now, they do have a bit of kind of an orangey, peachy color in just on the bottom part of their throat. And then there's a little bit of kind of a mustard color in their skin too. So we can do that by putting a base coat of maybe kind of a taupey color with a bit of orange in it, and then darken it. So layering is the way we're going to approach this. So we want some, actually this marigold color would be very good. Or if you have an ochre, and then I want a little bit of bright orange, or cadmium orange would also work. And a nice bright yellow. It's clogged. Almost done. And then that gray, charcoal gray for the bird. And a little bit of white, I think. Smidgen of white. And we're gonna use fairly small brushes. I think I'm probably gonna use probably around, let's see, and this one here, which is a number 7. Get some paper towel ready. And I'm going to go in with a very pale color of peachy buff, almost. Very light. And we'll start off with this guy here. So let's start off with this little guy right here. So you can see he's kind of got a light base color, and then we'll darken as we go. So I'm just going to put in his throat area. Let's see. Just to cover up this dark spot here. I don't have to worry too much about covering it totally because they have that gray in them. So as long as you get the green out, you should be good if there's a little bit of gray coming through. Because they're kind of mottled before they get their true feathers. It does come down a little bit. And just tapping as I go. Bring in a little. And let's put this guy in too. And this little guy, kind of hard to see. Let's see, there's his eye, there's his chin. And I'll leave a little bit of a space so I can see where everything is up the line. So I don't want to have to go in with the traceable again. And the opening of his mouth is fairly dark anyways, so it wouldn't hurt leaving that dark there. That'll change, and then this guy here, okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. This here has to be done like that. All right, now I'm going to add a little bit of more, I'm going to make more of that color up. So a little bit of yellow and the white and a little bit of orange. And this time I want a little bit more on the orangey side. Okay. and put some in here. Put in the most prevalent dark areas. So there's some in there. This guy down here doesn't have a whole lot. He's got a little more on the pinky mauve side, which we can put some of that into. This one here, a little more. You just follow the blotchiness of each of the chicks. And then they have a little bit of yellow in their throat, more yellow than orange. So I'm just taking that pure cadmium yellow, putting it in. A little bit here. And they have some in their neck area here. Not much, but just, it's very pale in here. So I'm just roughly dry brushing an area. In her throat here. And this guy. And then it has a little bit on the tip of the beak, underside beak, just a bit. And you could probably put a little bit there too. And this one here. Then we'll put a little bit of cream or white also on it. And right in here. All right, now we can put, I'm going to get a stipple brush kind of. Let's see. Or a deer foot would work too. I got this brush here. And we want some of this grayish color. Let's see if I can do this. I don't want a lot on my brush. I want it fairly light, a little bit light. Kind of a gray color. And then dab. Just very lightly. This one might be a little bit soft. You need a fairly rigid brush. Let's see. Let's see if this deer foot, maybe. Let's try the deer foot. See what happens. It's a little better. I had a really bristly brush, like a hard bristle brush. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. That should work. I'm gonna mix a little more of that up. Wipe some off. You just want to start the patchiness of how they look. So kind of pounce. They have these pin feathers. More dark down here. More concentration on one side because it's a little darker. This guy, he's got quite a bit of darkness in here, so I'm going to put most of this gray color in, the darker color, and it goes around his beak here, just up. They're actually kind of ugly looking when they're babies. Not very cutesy like a chick, like a chicken or a duckling. This is his eye, so it's very dark. So let's just put that in it right now. Areas in here, going down his little body. And then grayish colors. Some of that just add a little bit more of the peachy color. Then this guy, add a little bit more peachy color in there. And then I'm going to add a bit of that gray. So it dulls the peach down a little bit. Okay. And you hardly see that guy. I think I'm going to do that with a brush. It's really hard to see. It's almost hiding in the nest. You can just see his little eye. There's a little bit of yellow in that, almost a brownish color along the side of him. Let's see. Put a little bit of this. Pinky mauvish. It's an odd shade. Let's see if I can get that right. Just a bit. Under here, I covered his beak a bit with my modeling. A little darker in there. That's the inside of his mouth. Just a smidgen of that orangey peachy color. Give it a little bit of depth. And a little bit in there too. And his eye is fairly dark. All right, now I can take a little bit of that white and mix it in there again, the peachy color. I want a little bit lighter to do the outside edge of their beak because it's just kind of highlighted a bit. And this one here also is lighter. And let's see. And his eye is kind of a gray. It's not all his eye. He's got an eyelid that's kind of grayish color, and then his eye. So this right here is his eyelid, and it's kind of a funny gray color. Same with this here. They kind of have these bulgy eyes. And this needs to be smaller. Like that. Same with this one, smaller. And this one. You can always fix the center up. Okay, this one is a little bit bigger because he's up front. Now there's some dark areas here. So I'm just putting some of this gray in here because there's kind of little, it's not really pin feathers, but it's kind of shading around where the pin feathers are. So there's more than one layer when you do feathers or pin feathers. There's the dark and then there's a highlight or a lighter shade. So there's actually a little bit of a lighter gray, so it makes it look rounded. I'm not going to get too caught up in details with this particular one because I want you guys to more concentrate on the layers, not the photorealism of how you could get carried away with it. More of the impressionist way of painting. So a lot of times your eye will fill in the rest, so you don't have to paint it in. As long as you have the highlights and the darkest darks put in, that's pretty well all you need to worry about. Okay, he has quite a bit of brightness in here. It almost looks pinkish. I might have to add a little bit of pink in here too. It's fairly bright. I may end up going over a little bit of this with a glaze of pink. This guy needs a little bit of that beak done. And then they have a little bit of dark to show the separation of the beak. So you could take either a real pale gray or maybe the ochre here, and we'll make that in between where the shadows would be for the beak to open. Kind of a shadow right here. I think that's pretty good for what I want to do. Here needs to be a little, I can still see the lines in there, so I'm going to put a little bit more of that yellow and orange together, just to cover that line up a bit. That needs some white on it. Right in here. It's highlighted. Some in here. Right here. And like that. All right. Then I can take that brush now and go into the, and just put a modeling in this part. Doesn't have to be anything specific. I just want it colored. Do a little more in there. I want it fairly dark. And right, not too much, but a little bit there. And I should do his head a little bit, just to show where the rest of them is. Because then we'll put the nest in. All right, now when doing the nest, I just use one of these. This is the number 7. You could use a script liner too. And we already did this part with a sponge just to give a base coat in it. And now all we need to do is take your darkest dark first. Have your paintbrush not overly wet, but you want it a little bit watery. And then hold your brush like this, and then go in the direction and just do a bunch of little strokes, crisscross if you want. But make sure you remember the shape of the nest. Do some fatter, some wider. Crisscross. Few little dabs in there. The dabs will kind of look like the darkest little peepholes in there. Okay, then we take your same color you used, but add a little bit of white to it. So lighten it up. And then you can put a little yellow in it. So it's a little off. It's not quite gray. It's a little on a greeny gray side. And then just start doing the same thing. Make sure you have enough water on your brush though. Go over those black marks. And then lighten that up. And then start going in the shape of the, and I'm concentrating more on the top part around the birds now, because it would be lighter and your darker areas would be below it and inside it. You can put a few in the bottom area, but not concentrate most of them in the top part area. And make them small, big, thin, thick. Okay, now I'm going to take some white and that marigold color and a little bit of that gray I had and make another color. So it's kind of a odd greenish gray color. And then just on the top parts, go around, don't forget in there. Remember, you're going around in a circle, so don't forget to put some branches going into the nest too. Sometimes you can even put some covering parts of the bird. Now, if you want, you could also just do a few real light ones, so add some more of that white to that mix. And this time, just do a few, don't do a whole lot. So just a few. All right, and there's the little guys. They're almost done. Now I can take a little bit of that gold color with a lot of water on my brush and put a little bit of glaze in the bottom here. Just a smidge. Just to brighten it up a little bit. Right in here. They have this little bit of yellow. Okay. Now let's do the robin. Now she can be done a little bit differently with, probably we're going to use our grainer brush or a rake brush. But right now we want to put in, we're using a flat. And I'm just going to take that grayish color. These marks in here are very light color, kind of a taupey buff color. So if you can paint around those, we don't want to cover them. And I want to know where they are. So I'm just going to, actually I could use that. There's too many. You don't have to have them exact, but we want to know where those marks are. This is a charcoal color that I'm using. So you just paint those in. If you're having problems, don't worry too much about it. You can use a real thick paint to put them back in those marks. Okay. I'm just going to paint. I don't know, should I paint over those or not? Easier for you. I guess I will. I'll paint right over this. If you want to use the template or the traceable to put those marks back in with a white tracing paper, you can do that, or you can paint them individually. It's up to you. This might be the easiest way, but if you don't have any white tracing paper, you could probably put pastel on the back of your traceable and do that, and then it's very easy to remove if you get any of the pastels on anything else. Oh, not even in camera, sorry guys. There. I'm going to bring you out a little bit. There, so you can see. Okay, and then her beak is the yellow. So I'm just gonna, she has worms in her beak, but I'm just gonna put the yellow part in. She has kind of gray in her beak also, and I'm gonna put a fairly light, not too heavy coat of the yellow. I'm just gonna go right over top of that area that's darker, and then I'll fill it in with the right color. And it goes back into here, right by her mouth. And then she's got green worms. I've actually got a Posca. I probably will use that. Let's see. So she has kind of a gray in the center here. Going to about there. Then she has a little bit of a grayish color on the top of her beak. And then it goes into here too. I'm going to mix it, while it's wet, I'm going to mix the yellow into that edge just to integrate it. Let's put her eyeball in. I'll just do it black. Try and get it as round as possible. And a little bit of that yellow again, maybe the gold in here. I'm going to take some of that gray color, and then I'm just going to make some strokes across that black area. And then I'm going to take the white and dirty it up just a smidge with a little bit of yellow, not much, and then just add a little bit of the strokes in here where that white, those white marks were, and then I can go back in again color some of this area that was green. Now I'm going to take my grainer. So this is a grainer. So it's got a cut top edge, and it gives you a nice effect for feathers if you want finer detail. So now I can go in with this and make, I've got some gray on my brush, and just lightly flick in the direction the feathers would be going. So on the top it's a little bit lighter, and you gotta follow, you just do little taps on the top here where you see the highlights. And there's a little bit along here. And then as you get past her head, it's kind of dry brushed to make it look a little lighter, but keep going in the direction of the feathers. So not pressing very hard. I can actually see the grooves in the paper for where the wing feathers start, so I'm going to look at that for adding that. Okay, so see, it's just lightly put in. So now I'm going to lighten that up again with some of this, use what's on your palette. And then I'm just going to go over certain areas just for a little bit lighter marks. Right in here. And just dab. Tiny marks. I'm going to take a little bit of that charcoal again, and I'm just going to go back over, add a little darkness around the eye a bit. Just a few streaks. we don't have the cute robins that you guys have in the UK. All right, now with the wing, I can probably take if you see this here, they're shaped. So I could take either this grainer and make that shape with it, or you could draw around it. Now if we use this number 7 round, I could just outline where those wings are. I can see there's an indent. So and the feathers going down are a lot more. These bigger ones are much lighter, probably because they're reflecting light. And then there's another set underneath that. It's turned a little bit. Just has to be a suggestion. You don't really need a whole lot of information, just a suggestion. And then I'm going to take a little bit of that gray color and I'm just going to put a little bit of that in here on the bottom of his eye. And that's just to show that this is round. And then on the top part here a little bit. And then a fairly bright highlight, which is right here. And then I'll just dab it so I kind of and then there's a very small line around the outer edge of his eye. And you can put a little bit of a highlight on his beak too, as he does have just a bit right there. And I get a little bit of that gray too under here, just to make this a little more round. Okay, let's do some of his chest. So we could get out burnt sienna. And I'm just going to, let's see, it could be a little more orange. I'm going to put some orange with that. Yeah. And we'll just put a base coat on. Just going around the wing. If you just take your brush and dab, make little dab marks, that can also give you texture for their feathers. And a little bit darker, so I'm going to put a little bit of black with that brown. And just under here, it's a little bit darker because of the shadow. So I'm just dabbing. It'll go just up a little bit under his tummy, and under the wing here will be a little bit darker. And right here, so I'm not filling it totally up. And now I have to let it totally dry so I can put another layer on. You'll get to a point where your acrylic paint will start lifting if you try to paint when it's at a certain point of drying. Alright, now I'm going to take the same colors, but this time I'm going to take my grainer. Because it's a shape of a filbert, it's kind of the shape of a feather. So now I can go in and follow the path of the feathers and just put in dabs. And add a little bit of that orange to that color for the highlight. I'm gonna put a little bit more on here just to bring that color up a little bit. A little lighter in here. All right. Now let's do some worms here. So these would have been probably some kind of a budworm from plants, that type of thing. They're kind of green color. Kind of a limey green color. Let's see. Maybe I can do, no. Nice bright green. And I could also go over them with Poscas. Alright, got my Posc markers, the 20 color set. I think looks pretty good. Just testing something. Let's see if I can get this in or not. Giving this just a little bit more dimension. I know I'm getting, it's putting a little bit of a shadow under some of these. The more dimension you got, the better it'll look. So I'm just putting some darker, so these are in between the feathers. So just giving a little bit more dimension to it. I'm going to take a marker here. Oh, that's the white one. Where did I put my... And I'm going to put some little pin feathers in. There. So the pin feathers are just the beginning of their feathers, and they're kind of little, like little dots. So if I put just a few in, just a few dots in their neck, and they kind of run in rows going down. I'll bring in so. Just some dots. Some areas are a little more concentrated than others, so you can put those in too. Maybe around the eye, just a few. And if you have a nice gray, or well, either a light gray or a buff color. Here's a buff color, and then you can add some of that too, because some of the feathers are lighter. So this guy has a bunch And these are kind of a little longer. And this, oh, I know what I forgot. Oh, I'm not going to bother. I had his wing in here, but I don't think I'll put it in. Maybe a little bit of a highlight on this one. And I'm going to put a little highlight on this guy too. There's not a lot, but just a bit. And then this guy here, he's got a few in his little tummy here. Just little. This guy here, a little few in here. And this one. So a few. And then they have these fuzzy marks on their heads, like little bits of fuzz. I don't know if it'll show up here, but we'll put some in. I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight more in there. That doesn't. And that's, I'll put a little bit of in here. All right. So there's the fuzzies, little guys. So waiting for their worms. All right, so I think that's done for now. Yeah. So enjoy the weekend, everybody. Get your paints or your pencils out, do some sketching, do some painting. Just get creative and have a good weekend. And we'll talk to you later. Have a fantastic day, everybody.